I'm making what I call a sequel to Masoom, called Masoom, The Next Generation. I'm probably the most evil man in the world. I don't get lost in Maya. I don't care about my fame. It doesn't work that way. Of course you care about your fame. Everybody who's worked with you will tell you that he has to be beaten to death before he'll say the script's fine. Becoming unbound by the box of reasonability, the coffin of reasonability, you have to get out of that. And looking up and looking at the Milky Way and just wondering, where is this? How far does it go? Inside me, it's a constant churn. But that's why in my film, bad people are not really. Even Mogambo is very sweet.
Very sweet, right? Yeah. Khushua.
Yeah. I'm finding it very difficult now to find writers who think like I do. They say, oh, ho gaya na. Khatam. No. It's not the worship of one man, even though Daji is a wonderful human being.
Welcome to KANHACAST, a series of conversations with residents and visitors to Kanha Shanti Vanam, the International Heartfulness Center near Hyderabad, Telangana, India. In this episode, Ananya Rao is speaking to legendary filmmaker Shekhar Kapur, who has worked both in the Indian film industry as well as Hollywood. His films include Bandit Queen, the Elizabeth series, Mr. India and Masoom.
Hello, sir.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm very good. I've been meditating, relaxing, getting a lot of Ayurvedic treatments done. How can I not be good?
Of course, of course. I mean, just for the audience sake, I'm going to say that we are at Kanha Shanti Vanam and I am with the Shekhar Kapur. And that's where I want to begin as well. So I just wanted to know, how different is the Shekhar Kapur compared to the person in front of me right now?
You mean, I get actually surprised when people say nice things about me because I'm not that nice.
How can they not?
I think all of us have an exterior, and I have never ever designed or tried to create an exterior beyond who I am. Like stars always do. I have no social media or publicity people that tell me you should act like this, do this. But a creative mind is so full of chaos. It's a mind that is churning in the chaos. You know the manthan, the sagar manthan? The sagar, and that serpent is sitting inside, churning away. But inside that serpent is your chakras. Inside that serpent is your sexuality. Inside that serpent is your creativity. So when people say, oh my God, Shekhar, how come you look so calm? I get really amazed because I know that inside me, it's a constant churn. So maybe, who knows, maybe, peace lies in, like the standard dance of Shiva goes at such a pace that you either dance with Shiva or you lose contact with Shiva. So maybe what I'm doing is being in tune with the chaos of the universe, just hoping and praying and in all humility, because humility is a very, very important part of finding creativity. Maybe I get into tune, and what I see is chaos, and what I exude is calmness, When we look out at the stars at night, it looks so calm.
Yeah. We
see the Milky Way and feel it so calm, but you get close to it.
Yeah.
If you get really close to it, it's a churning. It's like explosions and creations and destruction and creation, destruction. So that exterior of the night is my exterior.
Wow, that's so lovely.
Yeah.
And that's so beautifully put. Night is the most calm time as well, but that's where all the chaos is.
Right. Yeah.
I'm gonna, there are so many things that I want to build on just with your one response here. But before any of that, I just want to know, how did you get to hear about Heartfulness and how did you end up coming here at all?
I first heard, it was during COVID lockdown, and I was up in the mountains. I was in Uttarakhand someplace. And a man called Rudy called me and said, we would like you. It was World Peace Day, and it was being celebrated here. And would I be willing to do an interview with Daji? And I said,
who's that?
Sure, but like, who's Daji? And then that's when the first time I heard, and then I investigated. That's what the first time I heard was. And it was up in the mountains. The connection was so bad. Oh. And I remember sitting outside, and the light was fading because inside there was no place. So I sat outside, looked prettier with all the greenery in the background. I kept trying to get connection, and I said, oh my God, I hope we get connection before the light fades. But we did. And that interview happened. Now, that's when I first heard of Daji. And then I'm a great friend of Deepak Chopra, and then he said he was here. Mm-hmm. I said, okay. Then the next thing was I got this invite from the Ministry of Culture. What? This is a spiritual gathering. And they would like me to come and speak at a spiritual gathering. Then the same thing happened. I'm probably the most evil man in the world. Like, what have I got to do with spirituality? Because there is a concept of spirituality that people don't get yet. Is that there is no spirituality without conflict. There's no spirituality without chaos. And it's somewhere in that high eye of the hurricane that you'll find your center. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I get surprised when I got called for spirituality because, so what I do is said, okay, I'd love to. Then they said, maybe, and then I said, no, I have to talk. Because I find myself when I talk, I don't ever, like right now, I have never got to, if you even told me what are the questions you're going to ask me, I would say, no, don't tell me.
Don't tell me.
Because somewhere in being truthful and honest and throwing caution to the winds, because that's also about spirituality, of becoming unbound by the box of reasonability, the coffin of reasonability, you have to get out of that. And so when I put myself on the line and there's an audience there and I don't know what to say, only the truth can come out. Because you could either lie and then it'll be very boring. The truth comes out under conflict and chaos within my head. So I said, yes, that's why I came here.
And that's also the part of the connect, right? You're in the flow and then everything comes naturally, like we are right now. I mean, there is no blockages of...
People always imagine when I say I'm in the flow, they think it's, the flow is something very smooth.
No.
But like a very deep river that flows, only the top is smooth. You look deep in the river and it's fundamentally trying to break the banks. Yeah. You ever try it? You go down deep in the river and it'll chuck you around. Like there are whirlpools everywhere. And then when you get to the top, you say, how calmly Ganga is flowing. Go deep inside. Right. And you'll find all the turmoil that the river is going through. Yeah. So the flow is the exterior of turmoil that does not stop flowing. That's it. That's it's turmoil that does not stop flowing is flow.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I'm going to take you back to the origin of this river. That's you. I mean, so I read that you were born in Lahore, Pakistan, 1945, and then the partition happened. And do you have memories from those times? Or did that incident ever affect your childhood?
Well, Pakistan did not exist when I was born.
Yeah.
So often I used to get in trouble. My passport would say, birthplace Lahore, India, and they'd say, what do you mean Lahore, India? Lahore is in Pakistan. So I had to get a passport that says undivided India. I was barely one when partition happened. I remember little things like a house, and I remember a dog bringing milk bottle to me, so I probably had an Alsatian dog. But I remember going back, because I went back to Lahore to do the music of Bandit Queen. Mm-hmm. I managed to get a tourist visa. I could not tell them that I'm coming to do some work. I would have never got a visa. So I went to work with Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan there. Oh. And my father gave me the address. I knew the address of where we were born. I was born. And it was said, Nisbat Road. My father told me, Udinal Ignala, Nalidanal, main road. So I went to Nisbat Road. There was this big wall and a decrepit bungalow inside, locked. So you know how chaiwalas will put a big canvas right next to a wall? I went to have tea and I said, "Kaun rehta tha?" अच्छा हाँ वो कहते हैं पार्टीशन से यहाँ वो लीगल केसेस ही चल रहे हैं यहाँ एक डॉक्टर साहब रहते थे तब पार्टीशन से पहले अच्छा मैंने कहा डॉक्टर कपूर आप डॉक्टर कपूर के बेटे 60 years after partition this old man sitting serving me tea.
He recognized.
Yeah, no, he recognized that I must be that guy. Then I know, and the things about your parents, that my father was a very strict man. All my friends were scared of him. He was a pediatrician, well known, and kind of in his silence and gruff voice like that. If
scared.
He was scared. But then one day I found out how he met my mother. She was in college, in university called Kanha College, and they were young. It was like Delhi's Miranda House, or one of those young. All the girls went to Kanha College, and he saw her, and he was a budding doctor, and he applied to teach there.
Oh.
And he went so he could meet her, so he used to teach there, and that's how it met. So, of course, I went to Kanha College, and I sat there. I told the principal who I was, and I sat in the canteen, and I saw all these very pretty young girls walking by, and their chunnis flowing and everything, and I said, my mother must have looked exactly like that when my father first saw her.
Yeah.
So, I went back and to find memories and things. And
60 years. 60 years after.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But, of course, the memories of partition, my parents never told me anything about it. And then later on,
after
little bit things here and there, which let's not talk about them because then they create angst.
Yeah.
Of the memory, the violence of the partition and everything. So why go there? Because whatever you do, however much you want to say, it was both sides, and it was just from what my father told me. One incident he just told me. And, it was just shows you how anger can divide people. People that are in love, suddenly anger, even married people who've been friends for so long, suddenly surges of anger can divide them. So, yeah.
True. But then Delhi happened, right? I mean, you were in Delhi, modern school, Stephen's College. Yeah. How was that, Delhi, growing up in Delhi and old Delhi? I mean, for us now, it's old Delhi when it was much less polluted.
No, we were not. Delhi was a completely unpolluted place at that time. We went to what was called, I lived in what was called New Delhi. Old Delhi was still old Delhi, pre-partition. It's a bit of a wild kid.
We can imagine that.
But in that, I had my own mind. I was not attentive to class. I found I was a good swimmer, so I used to go do competition, but there was always this other side. And I keep telling people that I was so bad at mathematics. Why? Because I couldn't understand why. I couldn't understand because nobody taught us the why of, now they do, but at that time, there were just mathematical laws. And nothing made sense to me unless I understood why. What is the meaning behind those mathematical laws? So I used to have very thick hair, full of dandruff. And in my maths class, I had this one seat. We all used to sit in the same seat. And on that table and seat, the sun ray used to come down like that. And if I did this and scratched my head, I would see so much dandruff. And I still remember, I would keep doing that. And what I would see the whole universe, that each dandruff is also the universe, the stars coming down and flowing through. And I still write about that. There are some great love poems I've written, imagining that dandruff was actually planets in which we exist. And so I was always in that. And I remember, because Delhi was unpolluted at that time, I could sleep. We used to sleep outside on the terrace in summer. And we could see the Milky Way. It was so unpolluted. And no sound pollution, no light pollution, no pollution. And I still remember looking up. I must have been 11 or 12. And looking up and looking at the Milky Way and just wondering, you know, where is this? How far does it go? And I remember asking my mother, I'll still remember, Mom, how far does this go? And she said, it goes on forever. And I would go for sleepless nights, start crying and trying to comprehend forever. Because it was about the time when you get attuned to physics and your teachers are saying that if it's not measurable, it does not exist. Yeah. Effectively science. What they teach you, right? In science, that there has no length, breadth, time as another dimension maybe, or specific gravity as a dimension, length, breadth, depth, time, gravity. It's how you measure things. In school, we were being taught that. And I would look up and say, no length, no breadth, no time, no gravity, and infinite depth. How can that be? So I couldn't sleep. I just kept thinking, me, the finite being, but existing in infinity? How's that possible? So I used to make up stories. So I remember making up the story of an axeman who had this big axe that was about to hit a tree. And the tip of the axe was the universe in which I existed. And when the tree hit the axe, it would break up and my universe would explode. Oh. But inside that explosion would be another axeman that had another universe of that. And that would explode as he was. So it was axeman within an axeman within an axeman within an axeman till I went to sleep. I said, counting the number of axemen that could exist and the number of universes that could exist.
Multi-universe.
Yeah. So I was thinking of multiverses at that time, obviously. So I don't know where this knowledge comes from, but it was not even knowledge, this intuitiveness. So I could only think that intuitiveness comes from not paying attention to class.
I agree.
Right?
Yes.
And not wanting to understand what they're telling you. And there's allowed, I think here you got it neuroplasty, but allowed that to develop. Because I didn't know what else.
Critical inquiry also.
I don't see it as inquiry. It was just imagining wild. Inquiry still has purpose.
Asking, yeah.
Right? If you use the word inquiry, it's just imagining. Just imagining. Wondering, yeah.
Wow. And this somehow this connect to these wonders and intuition has spilled over in your movies, I feel. I mean, even from the first one, they all have Masoom, and later I feel that they all have an undercurrent of, addressing these spiritual aspects, if not spiritual, the complexity of life.
I think it's spiritual. I think that when I look back at my movies, there's a fundamental desire to search for innocence.
Yes.
Underlying it.
Yeah.
The characters, But that's why in my film, bad people are not really. Even Mogambo is very sweet.
Very sweet, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's this fundamental desire to find the innocence in everything. And the search for innocence is my own search for my own innocence. And my own innocence is a spiritual search. The search for innocence is a very spiritual search. So, that was an analysis I made when somebody asked me the question, what is the commonality between all your movies? I couldn't understand it because, from Masoom to Mr. India to Bandit Queen to Elizabeth and all the other things I made in between, genre-wise, they're also different. So what holds them together? And I realized, even in Bandit Queen, within Phulan Devi, I was looking for the child in her and the innocence in her. So, the search for innocence is probably a spiritual search.
And love maybe also. Like there is always some aspect of love.
I don't say love because it's especially in the genre of filmmaking.
Overused.
Yeah, it's a much abused word because love is confined. Ownership. And so when if I say to people, which I'll say that, are you finding love? I'll say, yeah, just open your eyes and open your heart and you see actually live in an embryo of love. You were born in an embryo of love. You exist in an embryo of love and you always will. people say, "ये क्या बात कर रहा है?" मैं love story बनाना यार, लड़का एक लड़की, what are you talking about? वो बनाना. So I don't say that because then I won't get any work. यार तो कहीं और ही चले गया.
Yeah. Have you ever faced that? Like people have questioned your way of thinking?
When I first went to the West, I thought I'd impress anybody with these kind of answers to things. And my agent called me one day. Yeah. And he said, Shekhar, I can get you a lot of work, provided there's one word you do not use in any meeting. I said, what's the word? He said, subtext. Subtext. Don't use the word subtext. Just say that's the story. And then you do whatever you want. Don't use the word subtext.
Got it.
So they all get scared.
कि अब क्या होगा? What is next?
कहाँ जा रहे?
Yeah, it's hard for people to get that. But incidentally, your first movie as an actor was also called Love, 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 Ishq, 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 right?
That was hardly me. I was just there for the ride. It was my uncle, Devanand. He was going up to the mountains, going up to the base of Everest. Almost, and I said, well, I have to. And then I got a small part in it.
Okay.
Off I went. And then I did act in a few movies very badly. I was never a very good actor because, again, how do I find my subtext in a Hindi film with a small part? And when I was trying to do it, I would ruin the part because that's not what
the movie is about.
Yeah. And that's not what the film demanded. And I said, yeah, pagal ho gaya ye. Okay. Anger means get angry. Anger doesn't have subtext that you can explore, right?
Correct.
So that's it. Show anger. Yeah, okay.
But you did show anger in the Vishwarupam as Colonel. You were in Vishwarupam 1 and 2.
Yeah.
That was the anger mode on, right?
When it's another language that you don't really speak, it's fine. And Kamal Hassan and I, we used to play games, and I would say Tamil. I don't remember the lines, but imagine that I'm speaking Tamil now. But I'll say it in English. But imagine I'm speaking Tamil. This is what I do. Well, so I went the other day to the, that's interesting. And I come back, I would look everywhere. I put up a glass. I'd constantly trying to cover my face. But, trying to use my voice to express it. And then Kamal would laugh at the other side of the camera. He said, that was very good, Shekhar. Okay, now try looking straight at camera. Kamal, don't do that to me. Don't.
You can't be a bad guy. It's impossible even to act. Yeah. Nice. So moving from movies to you were so famous. Fame was everywhere for you. And a person who is exposed to that level of fame, Oscar nominations and, recognition throughout the world, Hollywood, Bollywood, all of that. And yet at the same time, you are who you are now. You're grounded, your reality. You are very much in tune with everything around you. How do you maintain that balance? You didn't get lost in that maya of the illusion of, that comes with success.
These are wonderful things to say about yourself. I don't get lost in maya. I don't care about my fame. It doesn't work that way. Of course you care about your fame. Of course you care that people want to constantly come and talk to you. But there's another aspect of fame it's like alcohol. It's an addiction. I didn't ever get addicted to it. Because I think that if you could not justify what you've done with a lot of internal questioning, then you think that fame has come because chance. My fame did not. I got to work because of chance sometimes. But no, none of my films happened without me deeply thinking about them. So if I connect to Elizabeth, I have months and months of thinking about who that person is. Any character in any film that I've been in, I can tell you, write a book about the character. One character, I can write a book. That's how deeply you have to think, or at least I do. So really you are, and a film succeeds, you're still thinking about that. The character is still going up in your head. It never goes away. It's like an artist who never completes a painting. So fame can happen, and you can get addicted to fame if that process of creation stops, then something else has to take over. But for me, I'm still making Bandit Queen. I'm still making Masoom. I went back to see Masoom and I kept wondering, how the hell did I make this? What was I thinking? So literally, the addiction to fame is like when all else fails, you get addicted to alcohol. So all else only fails when you think that you've done something and stopped and it's finished. It's not finished.
It's never finished. One after the other.
No, it doesn't.
To the other.
Nothing. It's not only one after the other. The previous one goes on. It just goes on. The next one comes out of the other one and comes out of another one.
So I noticed that in between your projects also there's 4 years, 5 years gap,
That's because I'm afraid. Everybody who's worked with me will tell you that he has to be beaten to death before he'll say the script's fine.
You're a perfectionist, you wanted.
No, it's not perfection. It's fear. And people say perfection is the aspiration to perfection is fear. But I don't aspire to perfection. I just aspire, I get addicted to exploring characters. And say, well, there must be more to this character.
Depth.
There must be, depth. And then, because if you are making, say, Phulan Devi's life story in 1.5 hours, and you're saying this is her life, you can't just use a plot. It has to be the actor's pauses become important. The cuts between scenes become important too. So because you are then exploring her life and all the subtext, and then asking the audience to understand it. So it's a process. It's a huge process. And then one day somebody says, well, if you don't make it now, it'll never get made. Then I say, okay, I'll make it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, let's go ahead. But given a chance, I'll never stop thinking about a film. But at one point, literally, I ran out of money. And then I said, okay, I won't make a film. I'll do something else. And then I'll do something else and I'll lose all the money. And then I said, oh, God, I have to make another film. I'll make a film.
But you do write, which does not involve, I
don't always write my own. I find it very difficult now to find writers who think like I do. They say, oh, ho gaya na, khatam, tab banao. But they're right also, because for them it's a profession. You write, you get your money, you go on to the next one. I am not like that. I'm sure there are other people. I'm not that. A lot of other people like me. But I am only this one. I'm making what I call a sequel to Masoom, called Masoom, The Next Generation. And it's a lie. It's not a sequel, but it's like that. It's a film like that.
Innocence at its base.
It's about innocence, and it's about who we are now. After 3 decades after Masoom, how do I see the world? How do I see families? How do I see relationships? And it's about grandparents and children rather than parents and children. Because what I've seen is that their parents and children are in a state of angst all the time.
Yeah.
It's suddenly the grandparents and the children that seem to connect. So it's about that. It's also about, my mother was in 2 earthquakes in Pakistan.
I did.
And she was very scared of earthquakes. And so when we came to Delhi after partition, she wanted desperately to build a house. And my dad was like me, ki karna kar. He was busy, patient, so I'm busy making films. But she was addicted to having a home. So she called the architect. And the architect came and she said, look, I want a home that will survive an earthquake. So I was thinking, Delhi's on the earthquake belt, but there's never been an earthquake that leveled every house. But whether that was the fear of earthquakes or the fear of partition and earthquakes and everything, of keeping a home together. But it turned into the house was built on stilts. And my mom's gone, my dad's gone. And I'm constantly, people are calling me and said, Shekhar, you're so stupid. You know what that house is worth now? So much. Then, Shekhar, aren't you silly? You should have sold it when it was worth so much. Now it's worth so much. Then somebody said, no, it's not worth so much, it's much, so much. Constantly, brokers are calling me, everything's calling me. So I had a private conversation with my mom, quietly in the universe, and I said, Mom, it's not an earthquake that's going to bring your house down. It's real estate value. And then I realized this is happening all over India.
Yeah.
Conflict within families are so based on real estate value. So I said, I want to make a film on what constitutes home. When does your home become a house? When does a house become property? When does property become real estate? How did this happen? And if we cannot define home, the idea of home, what is it? We cannot define ourselves. Or we're all, even gypsies have a home. Wildlife, a bird, migratory birds go from one home to another home. They'll come to the same tree. After traveling half the globe, they'll come to the same tree. A seed has a home. Everything has a home. And we are denying the idea of home. And I'm not saying, so the idea is a home is not just a brick wall or a house. It's memories, it's love, and it all is retained in there. So that's how Masoom to the next generation started.
Do you also talk about the transient nature of everything, of life itself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, through all of these, I mean, you have seen it happen, gone through a lot. Has it, so the spiritual aspect, has it been a part of your work life and all of that, but are you also on a personal quest all through for that, something beyond that is not describable?
See, when people say, like your question, the transient nature, there was a feeling that transient nature is a linear path.
It's never linear.
It's not that.
Yeah.
A transient nature is ever present. It's always there. So it's not like, okay, now Shekhar, transient nature going through. The problem is our addiction to linearity. We can't see the world, and our addiction to individuality. Like, does a leaf have a transient nature? When the wind is blowing, the leaf will flutter. I can say the leaf is playing. The branch will sway. I can say the branch is at play. And then the tree will move when there's a big storm, I say. And then the roots will hold together, and there's some kind of a play going on between the leaf, the branch, the trunk, and the roots. And they're playing with nature in trying to hold them together. Do they ever think that we have a transient nature, Or do they ever believe that they're individual? No. The leaf knows what its purpose is. It knows the leaf and the branch and the tree and the trunk and the soil that knows they're part of the planet. They never are addicted to a sense of individuality. We are. And I've often think that if we don't have this skull tissue, right? Just say we didn't have skull tissue and our brains were exposed. See our neurons clicking away? And they would click, 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 millions of clicks you would see of the brain, neurons. You would absolutely believe that they're clicking in tune with the cosmos. You would not say I'm an individual. You say I'm an inherent part of the cosmos that can walk. That is mobile. But when you put a skull tissue on, you say, I'm an individual. And we carry, it's a very Western concept also. In fact, you see in the storytelling, Western storytelling is very much about the rise and the way of an individual. Well, Eastern storytelling, ultimately, if you look at Chinese, Japanese, Indian, Mahabharata, everything, you find that the individual ultimately is acquiring and reaching his or her own destiny, which is kind of there. And then the destiny is revealed, and ultimately the journey is not completed till the destiny is revealed. And the destiny is a higher purpose in all storytelling. It's a higher purpose. It's much more than the individual. Whereas when you look at Western storytelling, because it's a newer culture, it's always the individual wins. The individual wins. So for me, if people say, what's your goal? Is to somehow experience the non-individual me. That's it.
And have you, what would you say would be your journey through experiencing that? And
I've experienced it at times. And because I've experienced it, I want to be in a state of experience. I'm not in a state of that experience. I'm like experienced it and then goes away and I say, whoa, 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 what was that? And
make it constant.
Be in a state of experience. Meditation probably do that, but can you be in a, let's go meditate for 10 minutes a day. Can you be in a state of meditation? No, being in a state of meditation is not the ability to do nothing. Constant state of meditation is the ability to know nothing, know the idea of nothing. And in that you create. Because everything else is expunged. When the heart is expunged, when the mind is expunged, suddenly you're free to create without bounds. So a state of meditation to me, if I can get there ever complete, is boundless creativity. Boundless creativity.
And this coming from you as just a possibility also is so inspiring. I mean, to reach that state itself. And coming back to the natures that you've talked about so much, the connection to nature. I was watching Elizabeth, The Golden Age, again rewatching it, and I noticed that everywhere you bring in that nature connect, like where you're talking about the Spaniards destroying forests to build boats. The rampant destruction of the forest is happening. I was like, this is you are actively talking about the environment, talking about nature. Did this connect happen over time, or when do you think you felt this need to express your connection with nature?
Remember, I was one of the generation when I was born. The environment was taken for granted. If you told me, a 12-year-old, that I won't be able to see the Milky Way when I'm lying outside, I would not. It's not an experience I was. No, of course you'll see the Milky Way. And then I suddenly got very addicted to water because my father's elder brother owned a farm in Punjab, and we used to go there. And there was a tube well. And we used to go there and take beer bottles and switch on the tube well. You just switch it on. And water came out with such force. We used to have, it would throw us back. And we had such fun. So we'd sit away from it and then try and go back, get a beer, get drunk, and go play. If you told me that one day it won't be there, I would say, no, it's always going to be there. So I grew up with the idea that nature and water and clear skies are given to us. And then, as I grew up, when I started to realize it can go away, is when I started to, in a way, inside me panic and said, what was I doing? What was I doing? Just turning on that and wasting water. So it just started because I never, as a kid, imagined that I could be driving up the mountains and just stop the car and say, I've never seen that fern before. I've never seen that tree before. Listen, I used to cycle to school in Delhi. I always got late because there were shetut trees on the way. There were amla trees in my school, and we used to pluck them, and all kinds of trees. And the worst was jamun. Because all the I remember going through India, you shake a tree and all the jamuns would fall and you'd eat them and your mouth would be purple, and you go to school. And I said, I got late because my mom was sick. It's not true. The jam is purple. But that's how I've even been to a school in Tonga.
Oh, okay.
So if said, oh my God, cars and pollution, you won't be able to breathe. It wasn't in my consciousness. When it came, it was a shock. That's why I'm such a brutal environmentalist.
And what do you think, what's the way forward? How do you think people would feel what you have felt? I mean, you have seen the shock. Many have.
I'll tell you what. Yeah. We've become an overconsumptive society. I remember 2008 when the great big financial collapse happened. I remember President Obama speaking and saying, one day after the other. One day he gave a big speech and he said, we've got to start consuming less in order to save the planet. And the very next day he was saying, you got to go out and buy more to save the economy. So there is something very inherently wrong with our business systems, because all our business, all our economic models are based on constantly, creatively increasing consumption. If consumption went static, the economic models will collapse. If house prices don't keep rising, they'll start falling. Gone are the days when you could buy a house and this is my home, and for 20 years the price won't change. Now we have such like silly economic models. If you don't buy more, the economy will collapse. So you have to go on being more and more and more and more and more consumptive. So my daughter was young. I said to her one day, I said, I remember I had 4 shirts. I could remember the color of the shirts in college. And I had 3 trousers, black, gray. Other than school, 4 shirts and 3 trousers. And I think we were sort of middle class to upper middle class. We were definitely not poor. I used to eat a lot. And we had a nice house, nice kind of house. Mm-hmm. And I remember walking, Bata used to be the only shoes you could get at that time. Mm-hmm. So I remember Bata shoes, and at one point the sole would, my foot would feel the ground. So what happened is, there was always a mochi or cobbler, so always going around on a bicycle, constantly going around the bicycle. And my mom or my dad would call him in and say, just resole those shoes. We were not and never were a society of waste. Yeah. Somewhere, and when I told my daughter, and then I said, listen, television, we had no color television, we didn't have cell phones. And she, goddamn little girl, she looked at me with such pity and said, Daddy, were you born in ancient times? Yeah. So that to her, a non-consumptive society is ancient times. Well, that's the problem. We are like fashion victims. Why are you buying a new pair of shoes? Why constantly? Because fashion empowers you, compels you. The whole idea of advertising is it works on reducing your self-worth. Mm. If your nose is this way, no, that's wrong. You have to have a nose like this, change it. If you make up this, no, that's not the good makeup. This is the makeup brand, you should use it. So till we go back to a simpler way of life, simpler living. I cannot remember showers when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm. Bucket bath.
Bucket. Try it. Mm-hmm. Most people won't turn off a shower while they're soaping themselves, just move away and go. A bucket bath takes less
water.
I was part of a very big organization called the Global Water Challenge in New York. And one of the women, there were directors. I said, bucket bath. I said, let's get Brad Pitt and let's get him shoot Brad Pitt naked doing a bucket bath and see that every girl in the world will bathe with a bucket. And you know what she said to me? She said, Shekhar, but with one bucket, I can't even get the shampoo out of my hair. I said, literally. I said, but don't you realize that those are foaming agents?
Yeah.
That's where the problem lies. You're using the wrong shampoo. Yeah. When you're using toothpaste, that foaming agent is even bad for you. So
absolutely.
It's
SLS.
Yeah, and we used to use those sticks, and clean our teeth so that we're constantly not trying to get the foam out of our mouth. So everything has gone wrong. Everything. We need to look at every way has been created now for super consumption. And now how do you stop it? How do you tell people that actually, because for 30 years, or I remember 50 years maybe, if there's no foam, then you're not cleaning your teeth. Yeah. If there's no foam, what was that little ad? If there was no foam on the body, that means that you're not really cleaning yourself. There's no foam on the hair. But foam is not what cleans you. Foam is what makes you feel gaya. Yeah. And that's a chemical that's even bad for you. Yeah. So I'm just taking this and being a little aggressive about that because this permeates into every aspect of what I call an overconsumptive society. Down to the villages. My mother used to put this little return things in and that horrible taste smelling things. You should wash my hair with that. There was no foam.
I remember this in the 90s also. Yeah. We used to take the steel containers to get oil, to get atta instead of the plastic ones. This was in the 90s. And we have somewhere gone wrong, terribly wrong.
And packaging is responsible. And packaging, and now, of course, people are saying, eat local, grow local, eat local. But for 40 years, we've been like, what happened to the supply chain? Something is grown somewhere, packed somewhere. Our mangoes, they're plucked. Nothing in this world, no fruit in this world is now plucked when it's ripe.
Yeah.
Then they put ripening. So, there's a lot of things. We can go on and on about that. But your question is, we need to live simpler. There's no other choice. We don't have a choice. There's no technology in this world that will allow us to save the planet except live simpler.
And that to youngsters would, maybe saying it may not work as good as, them experiencing a simpler life. So maybe through a channel of, say, meditation or, a deeper connect to yourself would help.
Because
it
we become
simpler.
super competitive.
Yeah.
And as long as, I think it can be changed because but it's all about self-worth. It's all about self-worth. Yeah. So when you say meditation is good, because your self-worth no longer is about external things. The moment your self-worth becomes connection within yourself, then these things become unimportant.
The external value is no longer important.
Yeah, because self-worth is so exterior. But I can do any commercial in this world is based on making you feel a lack of self-worth, so that you feel, I'll buy that product, I'll be better than so-and-so, better than so-and-so.
Yeah. Hopefully that change will come.
So what's that?
Hopefully that change will happen soon.
It's coming.
Yeah.
They're not fast enough.
Yeah.
It's just not fast enough. Yeah. Somebody's asking what happened to all the fish in the sea. And there's an environmentalist said, we ate it. It's very simple.
Yeah.
We overeat.
Overconsumption.
And with the big fishing trawlers, 90% of the fish is killed, but not eaten,
used. Yeah.
Not used. Just thrown back dead.
Yeah. So will that movie on water come through?
I hope so. I've been wanting to make it a long time, but I have to make it with somebody that actually has experienced it and believes in what I'm saying. Just absolutely believes in what I'm saying. We are running. People say we are hitting that danger point. We hit the danger point.
Long.
30 years ago.
30 years ago. Minimum.
40 years ago. Yeah. And we are all at a point where we'll find it difficult to save the Ganga. Yeah. Because those glaciers have melted to a point where we have to, this 1.4, 1.5 degrees, it's just a camouflage. All statistics run by governments are camouflage. Because stop people from thinking too deeply. Oh, okay, 1.4 degrees, great. What does that mean?
Exactly.
Does that mean that the glaciers will stop melting? Will that mean that the Ganga will flow at a greater force? As, the story of King Bhagirath and they'll come with such force. Where is that force? It's a gentle flow out of the glacier. And one day the glacier will go. And Varanasi will have no Ganga flowing, or it'll be in flood. So it'll be the flood or drought. So we are on our way there. The issue now is, what can we do to stop it? Can we? Even that's a question. Well, you work with the environment, you know that.
I think I feel we are beyond it. But I think it also comes back to how the generation now is quite aware of these things and is trying to make a difference. They get anxious and depressed even while handling these impacts to the environment that's come down to them now. Yeah, but they are making a difference is what I would say.
They are, but we are also headed towards gated communities.
Yeah.
I can go on about what. You better stop. Yeah.
But, you were here and you meditated with the Heartfulness Way. How was your experience with that? And
I've been wanting to meditate for years. This chaotic head of mine. Right. I actually got it wrong. I thought I have to still the chaos. Here I found that I actually encourage the chaos. encourage the thoughts to whirl even faster while I'm okay.
Yeah.
Rather than stop, because how do I stop a mind that is constantly, I create a story every second. Everything I look at is a story. Everything I look at is a story. Wow, that's a story, that's a story, that's a story. That's my mind. So how do I tell it to stop looking for stories? So let it look for stories. Let it look for stories and let it keep doing that. That's one thing I've learned here. Don't try and be who you are not. Be who you are and then meditate. That's my experience here. Yeah.
Lovely. And yeah, I mean, the river analogy that you just gave, that the river, deep rivers, they're very turbulent below. And when there's a cleansing that has to happen of that river or a pond, the water will get turbid, but then it clears out as well. So yeah.
I read this somewhere. I don't know if it's in the Gita or somewhere in the scriptures, that be like the leaf that floats on top of the water. Was it? Yeah. Wet on one side and dry on the other. Yeah. I still remember that. I can't remember where I found it. Then one day, nobody would find it and say, it's mine.
It's yours.
It's mine.
And you first heard it here.
Yeah.
Lovely, sir. And how many days would you be staying with us?
How many?
How many more days would you be with us?
I have to leave tomorrow, but I'll come back.
You'll come back.
Yeah, I think that what is amazing about Kanha is that the amazing community. It's not a bhakti movement. It's not the worship of one man, even though Daji is a wonderful human being. It's meditation. So where else would you find, I mean, there are architects and technocrats and media people. They all live here like any other community, except they live in a community where wherever you go, somebody's sitting meditating, or I'll say, I want to meditate, somebody will come and sit with me, meditate. That's creating a lot of gentleness and love in the community and probably increasing their productivity. So I would say that this is not an ashram, it's a community. Because there are several ashrams that I visited, but this is the first one I found where it's community life.
Community, yeah. We call it a meditation center. Meditation is at the heart of it, but we do have the entire community. And
everybody works,
Yeah. The families who work in the city, work from home and all of that, yeah. And how was your experience at the wellness?
Yeah, I mean, like, there's so many things there, and I'm going to come back. And I did. I can't even remember the names. And what was that thing?
Quantum healing or matrix.
Quantum healing was the first time I looked at my own charts, and I know they call it some kind of photography, and it was. But what Ekta, the lady that runs that, what she was able to tell me about myself just by looking at the charts was quite amazing. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. By just looking at the quantum healing charts. So the fact that there are every level of healing, I've never denied other levels, but I experienced that for the first time. And then there's I have a problem. I had an accident, and the healing through some German technique where I said,
matrix.
How did you get rid of that pain? How did you do that? Something goes around, like stretch here and it's gone. Like, is this for real? It's like amazing, quite amazing what's happening here. And everybody's experimenting, and there's you can't do this and you can't do this. You can try
everything. Try anything. And I mean, being a scientist, a lot of people ask me, "Oh, you're a meditation trainer as well," and that's a.
And you're an environmental scientist.
Yeah, and I feel heartfulness meditation is that. It's all an experiment on yourself. You're the experimenter. Daji says that it is that. Yeah. And one thing I wanted to share is that I've noticed for the past few days, I've spent some time with you, and I saw that there's a naughty streak to you as well.
What naughty streak?
Naughty streak, yeah. Because we were walking together and there was somebody who passed us who walked super fast, and you walked behind him to scare him super fast as well. I don't know if you noticed that, but yeah. Wow. I found that very interesting because otherwise you're generally very quiet, very to yourself. And then I saw this side.
No, that's an illusion.
The turbid.
Quietness is an illusion because, life, creativity is a state of play. And if you stop playing, you stop being creative, you stop living.
That's true.
It's a state of play.
Thank you so much. I had a lovely conversation with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm hoping and waiting for you to come back again as well.
I'll be back soon.
Soon.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of KANHACAST. Do subscribe to KANHACAST on YouTube, Instagram and Spotify. Until the next episode, from the entire KANHACAST team, Namaste and goodbye.